Marina's hands were shaking when she touched the ancient seal, not from cold but from the weight of 18 dying villagers counting on her to find a cure. The stone didn't crack, it shattered, and with it, 1,000 years of silence. When Silver eyes opened in the darkness and a voice like thunder and silk asked who dared wake him, she realized some prisons exist for a reason, and she had just freed something that was never meant to see the sun again. Have you ever made a choice that changed everything? Drop a comment below and hit subscribe because Marina's about to learn that breaking ancient seals comes with consequences darker than death itself. The sickness came in autumn, creeping through the village of Ashford Hollow like fog through pine trees. First it was old Thomas, the blacksmith, who collapsed at his anvil with fever burning through his veins. Then the Hendersons' twin daughters, their small bodies racked with chills no fire could warm. By the third week, 18 souls lay dying, and the village doctor had run out of answers, prayers, and hope. Marina knelt beside her grandmother's bed, pressing a cool cloth to the old woman's burning forehead. The woman who had raised her, who had taught her which herbs healed and which killed, who had filled her childhood with stories and warmth, now she was nothing but skin and bones, her breath rattling like autumn leaves. "The moon petal," her grandmother whispered, her clouded eyes struggling to focus. "In the cave, where the old seal rests. It grows only there, child. Only there." "Grandmother, that cave is forbidden. You always told me. I know what I told you." The old woman's grip on Marina's wrist was surprisingly strong. "But I also know what kills and what cures. The moon petal, it blooms in darkness, feeds on ancient magic. It's our only chance, Marina. Our only hope." Marina looked around the small cottage at the herbs hanging from the rafters, the remedies she'd tried, the tinctures and teas that had done nothing but ease pain while the sickness consumed. Outside, the October wind howled through Ashford Hollow, carrying the sound of another family's grief. She made her decision before dawn. The forest path to the forbidden cave was overgrown, barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness. Marina moved quickly, her herb-gathering basket clutched tight, a single oil lantern lighting her way. She'd heard the legends her entire life, every child in Ashford Hollow knew them. 1,000 years ago, a vampire king had ruled these mountains with cruelty and blood. When a coven of witches finally defeated him, they didn't destroy him, they couldn't. Instead, they sealed him and his bloodline in a prison of stone and magic, binding them to darkness until the mountains themselves crumbled to dust. "Just legends," Marina whispered to herself as the cave mouth appeared between two ancient pine trees. "Just stories to keep children from wandering." But her hands shook as she stepped inside. The cave swallowed her lantern light, the darkness so complete it felt solid. The air was cold, far colder than October had any right to be, and it tasted of stone and secrets and something else, something old that made her skin prickle with instinctive fear. She almost turned back. Almost. Then she thought of her grandmother's labored breathing, of little Anna Henderson crying for her mother, of the 18 souls counting on her whether they knew it or not. Marina pressed forward. The cave twisted deeper into the mountain, the passage narrowing until she had to turn sideways to squeeze through. Just when her courage began to fail, the tunnel opened into a chamber that stole her breath. It was massive, easily 100 feet across, the ceiling lost in shadows her lantern couldn't reach. But it was what occupied the center that made her freeze. A monolithic stone slab, easily 20 feet tall and 10 wide, stood like a sentinel in the darkness. Its surface was covered in symbols that seemed to writhe in her lantern light, and running through its center was a crack sealed with something that glowed faint crimson, not paint, not any substance she recognized, but light itself, pulsing like a heartbeat. And at the base of the monolith, growing from cracks in the stone floor, she saw them. Moon petals. Dozens of them, their white petals luminescent in the darkness, exactly as her grandmother had described. Relief flooded through her. She'd found them. She could save. Her foot caught on something in the darkness. A root, a rock, she never knew what. Marina stumbled forward, her lantern flying from her hand, her body pitching toward the monolith. She threw her hands out to catch herself and made contact with the seal. The world exploded in crimson light. The seal didn't break and it detonated. Light erupted from the stone in waves that knocked Marina backward, sending her sprawling across the cave floor. The symbols on the monolith blazed like brands of fire, spinning faster and faster until they became a whirlwind of ancient magic. The ground shook. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling. And the crack in the stone, the seal that had held for 1,000 years, shattered like glass. Darkness poured out. Not shadow, but something alive, something that had been compressed and contained and was now free. It filled the chamber like smoke, like oil, like a nightmare made tangible. Marina scrambled backward, her lungs screaming for air that had suddenly gone Arctic cold, her mind unable to process what her eyes were seeing. The darkness was taking shape. A figure emerged from the monolith through it, as if the stone itself was simply mist to be walked through. Tall, impossibly tall, unfolding from the prison that had held him like a predator stretching after a long sleep. As the darkness fell away, Marina saw him clearly, and the sight drove all breath from her lungs. He was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful, sharp, deadly, mesmerizing. Pale skin that seemed to glow against the shadows, features so perfect they looked carved rather than born, hair the color of a raven's wing falling past broad shoulders. He wore clothing from another age, dark, elegant, nothing like the simple homespun of her village. But it was his eyes that paralyzed her. Silver. Pure molten silver, without pupil or iris, glowing with their own inner light. Ancient eyes. Predator's eyes. Eyes that had seen centuries pass while he lay imprisoned in stone and darkness. Those eyes found her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Marina pressed against the cave wall, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. He stood motionless, his head tilted slightly as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing, couldn't quite comprehend that he was finally, after 1,000 years, free. Then he smiled, and Marina saw his fangs. "Well," he said, and his voice was like thunder rolling through mountain valleys, like silk dragged across broken glass. "This is unexpected." He took a step toward her. Marina tried to run, but her legs wouldn't obey, frozen by terror and something else, something primal that recognized him as the apex predator her ancestors had feared. "Please," she managed, the word barely a whisper. "Please, I didn't mean to, I didn't know." Didn't know. He moved closer, each step fluid grace, a hunter who'd had centuries to perfect stalking prey. "You broke a seal that has held for a millennium. You freed me from a prison that was supposed to be eternal. And you didn't know." He stopped just beyond her lantern's light, his silver eyes reflecting the flame like a wolf's in darkness. "What's your name, little breaker of seals?" Marina." Marina. He spoke it slowly, as if tasting each syllable. "I am Dorian, son of the Vampire King, the last of his bloodline. And you, Marina." That terrible smile widened. "You have just made the most catastrophic mistake of your very short life." Marina couldn't move. Her back pressed against cold stone, every instinct screaming at her to run, but Dorian stood between her and the only exit. In the flickering lantern light, he looked like something carved from marble and moonlight, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. "I need those flowers," she whispered, forcing the words past her fear. "People are dying. People are always dying." He circled her slowly, his movements predatory, deliberate. "It's what mortals do best. Why should their suffering concern me after what was done to my kind? Because they're innocent. They had nothing to do with whatever happened 1,000 years ago." Dorian stopped, his silver eyes narrowing. "Innocent." The word came out like a curse. "My father's enemies didn't care about innocence when they sealed us away. They didn't care that I was barely 20 years old when they entombed me in darkness. 1,000 years, Marina. Do you have any concept of what that means? 1,000 years of consciousness without movement, without sound, without anything but my own thoughts eating me alive." For a moment, something raw flickered across his perfect features, pain so deep it made Marina's chest ache despite her terror. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "I'm sorry that happened to you. But those people in my village, they're not your enemies. They're just trying to survive." He studied her with those ancient eyes, his head tilted like a wolf examining something that confused it. "You're not what I expected. 1,000 years of planning vengeance, and the first mortal I meet apologizes." He laughed short, sharp, bitter. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. Marina's grandmother's face flashed in her mind, pale, fevered, dying. She pushed away from the wall, her fear temporarily overridden by desperation. "Then let me take the moon petals and go. You're free now. You can have your vengeance on whoever you want. Just, please, let me save them first." She tried to move past him toward the flowers. His hand shot out, catching her wrist not roughly, but his grip was iron, immovable, and cold as winter stone. "You think it's that simple?" His face was inches from hers now, and she could see the inhuman quality of his beauty up close, the slight glow to his skin, the absolute stillness of someone who didn't need to breathe. The moment you broke that seal, you bound yourself to me. Blood magic, ancient and unbreakable. Where you go, I go. What you feel, I feel. You're not leaving this cave without me, little savior. What? No, that's... Look at your hand. Marina glanced down at her wrist where he held her. Around it, faint crimson marks glowed beneath her skin, forming symbols that matched the ones on the shattered seal. As she watched, identical marks appeared on Dorian's wrist. The seal didn't just imprison me, he said quietly. It was designed to ensure that whoever broke it would be bound to me for insurance against escape. The witches who created it were thorough. You're my anchor now, Marina. My tether to this world. If you die... He paused, something unreadable crossing his face. I returned to the void. If I die, you follow. The cave suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. No. No, there has to be a way to undo it. Oh, there is. His smile was sharp. Death. Yours or mine. Those are your options. What would you do if saving someone meant binding yourself to a monster? Drop a comment below because Marina's about to learn that some debts can't be unpaid. Marina's mind raced. Bound to a vampire. An ancient, vengeful vampire who'd spent a millennium planning revenge. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be simple: get the flowers, save her grandmother, go home. I see the panic in your eyes, Dorian said, releasing her wrist. Good. You should be terrified. But here's what's going to happen. You want your flowers? Fine. Take them. We'll go to your little village, and you'll save your dying mortals. He leaned closer, his breath cold against her ear. And then, Marina, you're going to help me find the descendants of those who imprisoned me. You're going to help me take my revenge. Because if you don't, I'll start with your village. With your grandmother. With everyone you've ever loved. You're a monster, Marina breathed. Yes. No shame, no hesitation. I am. But I'm the monster you unleashed, so now you get to live with the consequences. He stepped back, gesturing toward the moon petals with mock courtesy. Go ahead. Gather your cure. But know this, the moment we leave this cave, your old life ends. You belong to darkness now. You belong to me. Marina wanted to argue, to fight, to do anything but accept this nightmare. But her grandmother's rasping breath echoed in her memory, and 18 people lay dying while she stood here. She had no choice. She'd never had a choice. With shaking hands, she knelt and began gathering the moon petals, their white glow the only pure thing left in a world that had just turned impossibly dark. Behind her, she felt Dorian's silver eyes watching, burning into her back like brands. She'd come here to save lives. Instead, she doomed herself to something far worse than death. And the worst part? A traitorous voice in the back of her mind whispered that the most dangerous thing in this cave wasn't Dorian's threat of violence. It was the way her heart had stuttered when he'd stood close, the way some dark, hidden part of her had responded to the monster in the shadows. Marina had broken more than just a seal tonight. She'd broken the barrier between her world and his. And there was no putting that back together. The walk back through the forest was nothing like Marina's desperate journey into the cave. Then, she'd been alone with only her fear and determination. Now, Dorian moved beside her like a shadow given form, silent except for the whisper of his boots on fallen leaves. He didn't stumble in the darkness. Didn't need her lantern. His silver eyes cut through the night like blades. You're shaking, he observed, his voice cutting through the pre-dawn silence. I'm cold. A lie. The October air was crisp, but it wasn't what made her tremble. No. You're terrified. He said it matter-of-factly, without pleasure or cruelty. Good. Fear keeps mortals alive. It's hope that kills them. Marina clutched her basket of moon petals tighter. If you're going to kill everyone anyway, why let me save them first? I didn't say I would kill them. Dorian paused, his head tilting as if listening to something she couldn't hear. I said I'd take revenge on those who imprisoned me. Your villagers, they're irrelevant. Unless you give me reason to make them relevant. There was something in his tone, not quite mercy, but not absolute cruelty either. Marina risked a glance at him. In the moonlight filtering through the pines, he looked less like a monster and more like a man carved from sorrow and rage. How old were you, she asked quietly, when they sealed you away? His jaw tightened. Why do you care? Because maybe if I understand, I can. Can what? Save me. He laughed, bitter and sharp. I don't want salvation, Marina. I want blood. I want the descendants of those witches to feel even a fraction of what I felt in that darkness. He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. I was 23. 23 years old, barely 3 years old. My father had powerful enemies. When they couldn't kill him, they settled for destroying his legacy. Me. That's not fair, Marina whispered. No, it's not. Something raw flickered in his silver eyes. But fairness is a mortal luxury. I learned that in my first century of imprisonment. They walked in silence until the village lights appeared through the trees. Ashford Hollow, population maybe 200, huddled in the valley like a secret. Smoke rose from chimneys. A dog barked in the distance. Normal. Safe. Everything Marina had known her entire life. Everything that was about to change. Stay out of sight, she told Dorian. At least until I can figure out how to explain. Explain what? That you freed an ancient vampire. His smile was sharp. There is no explanation that makes this acceptable, Marina. But fine. I'll lurk in the shadows like the monster I am. For now. He melted into the darkness between two houses so completely it was like he'd never existed. Only the faint crimson glow on Marina's wrist reminded her this wasn't a nightmare she could wake from. Her grandmother's cottage was dark except for a single candle in the window. Marina burst through the door, her basket of moon petals clutched tight. Grandmother. The old woman stirred in her bed, her eyes opening slowly. Marina? Child, where have you been? The cave. I found them. The moon petals. Marina was already crushing the flowers in her mortar, mixing them with water the way her grandmother had taught her. You're going to be fine. Everyone's going to be fine. She helped her grandmother drink the mixture, then grabbed her basket and ran to the next house, and the next. The Henderson twins. Old Thomas. Every person burning with fever, she gave them the cure, her hand steady even as her mind screamed about the vampire waiting in the shadows. By the time the sun rose, all 18 villagers had received the moon petal tea. Their fevers were already breaking, color returning to pale cheeks. Marina should have felt triumphant. Relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. She'd saved them. But at what cost? You did well. Marina spun around. Dorian stood in the doorway of her grandmother's cottage, morning light streaming past him but not touching him. He remained in shadow, careful, controlled. Sunlight, Marina realized. It can kill you. Weaken me. Not kill, not immediately. But yes, I prefer darkness. He studied the sleeping village through the window. They have no idea how close they came to death. Or how close they still are. You promised. I promised not to kill them unless you gave me reason. He turned those silver eyes on her. But I need to feed Marina. Soon. And when I do, your perfect little village will learn what real monsters look like. Horror crawled up Marina's spine. No. There has to be another way. There isn't. I am what I am. But he didn't sound pleased about it. He sounded tired. Ancient. I can wait a few days. Maybe a week. But the hunger will come, and when it does, I won't be able to stop it. Marina's mind raced. Then we leave. Now. Before I slaughter everyone you love. Dorian's laugh was harsh. Finally, you're thinking clearly. Yes. We leave. You and I, bound by blood magic, wander the world while I hunt the descendants of my enemies. That's your life now, Marina. How does it feel? Like a nightmare. Good. Then we understand each other. He moved closer, his cold hand catching her chin, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. But here's what you need to understand, little savior. You're mine now. My anchor, my responsibility, my burden. And despite everything, despite the rage and the hunger and the 1,000 years of darkness, I don't want you dead. The magic that binds us works both ways. What you feel, I feel. Your pain is my pain. Your death is my death. There was something in his voice, something almost vulnerable. Marina searched his face, seeing past the perfect features to the broken thing underneath. "You're lonely," she whispered. Dorian's hand dropped like she'd burned him. "I'm a monster." "You're both." For a moment, they stared at each other, the village girl and the vampire prince, bound by ancient magic and impossible circumstances. Then Dorian turned away. "Pack your things. We leave tonight. And Marina." He glanced back, his silver eyes catching the morning light. "Say goodbye to your grandmother. You won't be coming back." The next 3 days were the strangest of Marina's life. During the day, she helped her grandmother recover, gathered supplies, and tried to figure out how to explain why she needed to leave. At night, Dorian haunted the edges of the village like a ghost, never quite solid, never quite gone. On the third night, Marina found him in the forest clearing where she used to gather herbs. He stood with his face tilted to the stars, so still he could have been carved from stone. "Do you miss it?" she asked quietly. "The sun?" "Every day." His voice was raw. "I used to paint. Did you know that? Before this. I'd wake before dawn just to catch the first light. Now I'm a creature of shadow, forever locked out of the world I once loved." Marina stepped closer. "Dorian, don't." But he didn't move away. "Don't try to humanize me, Marina. Don't make me into some tragic figure worthy of redemption. I've done terrible things. I will do terrible things again. Hunger doesn't care about your compassion. Then feed." He turned to her, surprise flickering across his features. "What? You said you need blood. So, take mine." Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. "We're bound anyway. If my death is your death, then you won't kill me, right?" Dorian stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You're offering yourself to a vampire. Do you understand how insane that is? Do you understand that I can't let you hurt innocent people?" Marina met his silver gaze. "You want revenge on those who wronged you? Fine. Help me understand who they are, where they are. We'll find them together. But in my village, these people who've done nothing, they're off limits. So if you need blood, take mine. You have no idea what you're asking. Then show me." For a long moment, Dorian didn't move. Then slowly, carefully, he reached out and brushed her hair back from her neck. His fingers were cold, gentle, trembling slightly. "This will hurt," he warned. "I know." His fangs pierced her throat in one swift motion. Marina gasped, pain flaring white-hot, but then something else. Warmth. Connection. She felt Dorian's hunger, his relief, his anguish, all flooding through the bond that tied them together. She felt his loneliness, 1,000 years deep. His fear. His desperate, hidden hope that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as monstrous as he believed. When he pulled away, his eyes were wide, almost frightened. "I felt." He touched his chest, his voice shaking. "I felt your heartbeat. Your warmth. Like sunlight inside my veins." Marina pressed a hand to her neck, feeling the puncture wounds already beginning to heal vampire magic in her blood now. "The bond. It goes both ways." "Yes." Dorian looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Which means when I feed from you, I feel everything you feel. Your kindness. Your hope. Your—" He met her eyes. "Your belief that I'm more than a monster. Aren't you?" "I don't know anymore." He sounded lost, this ancient creature of darkness, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. 1,000 years, Marina. I've been nothing but rage and hunger for so long. But you look at me like I'm still capable of being something else." Marina stepped closer, her hand finding his. It was cold, but solid, real. "Maybe you are. Maybe we both are. More than just what happened to us." Dorian's fingers tightened around hers. "If I help you, if I try to be what you think I can be, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If I lose myself to hunger. If I become the monster I was meant to be. You'll end it. You'll find a way to break this bond and kill me before I hurt innocent people. Dorian. Promise me, Marina." She looked into his silver eyes and saw the fear there not of death, but of becoming what his father had been. What his enemies had feared. A creature of pure violence and blood. I promise, she whispered. But I don't think it will come to that. Why not? Because monsters don't ask to be stopped. And you just did. Something shifted in Dorian's expression of hope, fragile and new, like the first light of dawn he could no longer see. He pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers, and for a moment they were just two broken souls clinging to each other in the darkness. Your grandmother asked me tonight what my intentions were, he said quietly. With you. As if I were some village boy coming courting. Marina laughed despite everything. What did you tell her? That I intend to keep you alive. That I intend to protect you, even from myself. His thumb traced the marks on her wrist. And that somehow, impossibly, you've made me want to be more than the sum of my worst parts. That's a start. Is it enough? Marina thought about everything that had happened. The broken seal, the blood bond, the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. She thought about the loneliness in his eyes, the gentleness in his touch despite his claims of monstrosity, the way he'd asked her to stop him if he went too far. Yes, she said. It's enough. They left Ashford Hollow on the fourth night, Marina's few possessions packed in a warm canvas bag, her grandmother's blessing heavy on her shoulders. The old woman had known, somehow had seen the marks on Marina's wrist, had watched Dorian lurk in the shadows, and had understood what her granddaughter had done. Some prices are worth paying, she'd whispered as Marina hugged her goodbye. Some monsters are worth saving. Trust your heart, child. It knows the difference. Now Marina walked beside Dorian through forests that grew darker and stranger the further they traveled from home. He'd explained his plan. There were 3 families descended from the coven that had sealed him. The Blackwoods, the Ashfords, and the Thorns. Powerful bloodlines that had maintained the seal for 1,000 years, ensuring the Vampire King's legacy stayed buried. They'll know I'm free, Dorian said as they made camp in an abandoned cabin. The moment that seal broke, they felt it. They'll be hunting us. Good. Marina surprised herself with the word. Let them come. Let them see what their ancestors' cruelty created. Dorian looked at her, something almost like admiration in his silver eyes. You've changed. 3 days ago you were terrified of me. I'm still terrified. But I'm also angry. She touched the marks on her wrist. They bound you to darkness for crimes you didn't commit. They made you into the thing they feared most. That's not justice. That's cruelty. And you want to help me get revenge. I want to help you get answers. There's a difference. Marina met his gaze. If they have good reasons, if you truly were a monster, even then we walk away. But if they don't, if this was just about power and fear and hatred, then what? Then we make them answer it. A slow smile spread across Dorian's face, the first real smile she'd seen from him. You know what the most dangerous thing in this world is, Marina? Not vampires. Not magic. It's a mortal with a righteous cause and nothing left to lose. I haven't lost everything. No. He stepped closer, his cold hand cupping her face with unexpected tenderness. You've lost your home, your safety, your normal life. You've bound yourself to a monster. You've offered your blood to keep innocents safe. What's left? Marina thought about it. What did she have left? Her grandmother would be fine now. The village was safe. Everything she'd known was behind her. But standing here in this abandoned cabin, with a vampire who'd been imprisoned for 1,000 years and somehow still held onto enough humanity to ask her to stop him if he went too far. Hope, she whispered. I still have hope. Dorian's laugh was soft, almost broken. Hope, the most mortal thing of all. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You're going to be the death of me, Marina. Or my salvation. I'm not sure which. Maybe both. Maybe. He leaned closer, his breath cold against her lips. Is this insane? Feeling what I feel for you? You're mortal. Fragile. You'll be dust in the blink of an eye while I continue on forever. Is that what you're afraid of? That I'll die and leave you alone again? Yes. No hesitation. Raw honesty. I've been alone for so long, Marina. And now that I have you, now that I can feel your warmth, your kindness, your infuriating hope, the thought of losing you is worse than another 1,000 years in darkness. Marina's heart ached. Then don't waste the time we have. She kissed him. It was insane kissing a vampire, a creature of darkness, something that should have been her death. But his lips were cold and gentle, and when he kissed her back it was with a desperate tenderness that spoke of centuries of loneliness finally ending. When they pulled apart, Dorian's eyes were wide, almost frightened. "I can feel your heartbeat," he whispered. "Through the bond. It's racing. Because of you. Because you're terrified." "No." Marina took his cold hand and pressed it to her chest, over her pounding heart. "Because I'm alive. Because after years of quiet, safe predictability, I finally feel something real. Even if it's dangerous. Even if it's impossible." Dorian closed his eyes, his hand trembling against her heartbeat. "I don't deserve this. You. Any of it. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." Marina smiled. "Blood bond. Remember? You're my monster now. And you're my mortal." He pulled her close, wrapping her in arms that were strong and cold and surprisingly safe. "God help us both." They stayed like that as the night deepened, two impossible souls bound by ancient magic and something far more dangerous, the beginning of love blooming in blood-stained darkness. The Blackwood estate loomed against the Montana sky like a Gothic nightmare, all sharp spires and dark stone, surrounded by forest that seemed to lean away from it. They'd tracked the family here over 2 weeks of travel, following rumors and old bloodlines, and now they stood at the edge of the property, staring at the ancestral home of Dorian's enemies. "They know we're here," Dorian said quietly. "I can feel their words. Magical barriers designed to keep vampires out. But I'm not a vampire." Marina studied the house. "I could go in. Talk to them." "Absolutely not." His hand caught her wrist, the bond marks glowing faint crimson. "These people have spent 1,000 years maintaining a prison. They won't hesitate to kill you if they think it will send me back to darkness." "Then what do we do?" Before Dorian could answer, the front door opened. A woman emerged, tall, elegant, perhaps 40, with dark hair streaked with silver and eyes that gleamed with power. Behind her came 2 younger people, a man and woman who had to be her children, both carrying themselves with the confidence of those born to magic. "Dorian Ashford," the woman called out, her voice carrying across the distance. "Son of the Vampire King. We've been expecting you." Dorian's jaw tightened, but he stepped forward, keeping Marina slightly behind him. "And you are?" "Victoria Blackwood, keeper of the Northern Seal. Or at least, I was, until someone broke it." Her gaze shifted to Marina. "Hello, dear. You must be the unfortunate girl who freed him. I'm sorry. Truly. You had no idea what you were doing." Marina stepped out from behind Dorian. "I knew exactly what I was doing. I was saving my village. And in doing so, you've doomed possibly thousands." Victoria's expression was sad, not cruel. "Child, do you know why the Vampire King was sealed? Because your ancestors feared him. Because he massacred entire villages." Victoria's voice cut through Marina's protest. "Because he turned children into vampires to build an army. Because he declared war on humanity itself and nearly won. And this 1 inch," she pointed at Dorian, "was his heir. His weapon. Trained from birth to be just as monstrous." "No." Marina looked at Dorian, seeing the pain in his silver eyes. "That's not tell them. Tell them the truth." Dorian's laugh was bitter. "What truth, Marina? That I don't remember? That I was 3 years turned when they sealed me, barely conscious of what I'd become?" He turned to Victoria. "I have no memory of massacres. No memory of choosing this. My father turned me against my will, and before I could even understand what I was, you buried me alive for crimes I may or may not have committed." Victoria's expression flickered with surprise, then something that might have been doubtful. "You don't remember?" "I remember being human. I remember painting sunrises. I remember my father's men holding me down while he drained me and fed me his blood." Dorian's voice shook. "And then I remember darkness. 1,000 years of it. So tell me, keeper of the Northern Seal, what crimes did I commit that deserved that?" The silence stretched out. Victoria's children exchanged glances. Finally, the woman spoke. "Mother, you never told us he didn't remember. You said he was just as guilty as his father." "Because that's what we were taught," Victoria said, but her voice was less certain now. "What the records showed. What the old stories claimed." What if the stories were wrong? Marina demanded. What if your ancestors sealed him not because of what he'd done, but because of what they feared he might do? Because he was the Vampire King's son, and that was enough to condemn him. Victoria's face had gone pale. The seal was, it was justice. It had to be. It was cruel, Dorian said quietly, and it turned me into exactly what you feared. 1,000 years of rage and darkness, Victoria. 1,000 years of planning revenge on people who condemned me for my father's sins. You created the monster you were trying to prevent. Victoria looked at him and really looked at him, and Marina saw the moment the woman understood. Saw her certainty crumble. Oh God. What did we do? You imprisoned an innocent, Marina said. Or close enough to innocent. And you've maintained that prison for 1,000 years without ever questioning if it was right. We didn't know. We thought the record said. Victoria's composure was cracking. If you're telling the truth, if you really don't remember crimes beyond being turned against your will, then your family owes me 1,000 years of apologies. Dorian's voice was hard. But I'll settle for the truth. All of it. Every record, every account. I want to know who I was before the darkness took me. Victoria nodded slowly. You'll have it. Everything we have, you'll see. And Dorian. She met his silver eyes. If you truly were innocent, if we've been guarding a prison built on fear and prejudice, I'm sorry. That doesn't undo what was done, but for what it's worth I am sorry. Marina felt the tension drain from Dorian's shoulders. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. Recognition that maybe, finally, someone was listening. Come inside, Victoria said. Both of you. Let's uncover the truth together. It's the least we owe you. The Blackwood archive was vast, centuries of records documenting vampire activity, magical seals, and the eternal vigilance of keeping darkness at bay. Marina and Dorian spent 3 days poring over ancient texts while Victoria and her children helped search for the truth. What they found changed everything. Listen to this, Victoria's daughter, Catherine, read from a crumbling journal. Entry dated October 17, 1025. The king's son shows no signs of his father's cruelty. Despite being turned, he refuses to feed on innocence. Elder Thorne argues he's playing a long game, but I've watched him. He's more of a prisoner than a prince. His father keeps him locked away, afraid of what the boy might become, or perhaps, afraid he won't become monstrous enough. Dorian's hand tightened on the table. I didn't know. I never knew my father kept me isolated. There's more, Catherine continued. From the witch who led the sealing ritual, we seal the son with the father, though it troubles me. The boy is young, newly turned, and shows more humanity than most mortals I've known. But the others fear him and fear what he represents. Better to bury them both than risk another 1,000 years of war. May God forgive us for what we do today. The room fell silent. Marina found Dorian's hand under the table, lacing her fingers through his. Through their bond, she felt his anguish at the confirmation that he'd been punished not for crimes he'd committed, but for the accident of his bloodline. They knew, he whispered. They knew I was innocent, and they sealed me anyway. Victoria's face was ashen. My ancestors, they chose fear over justice. They condemned you to save themselves from uncertainty. She stood, moving to kneel before Dorian, a gesture of humility that clearly shocked her children. On behalf of the Blackwood line, on behalf of every keeper who maintained that seal without questioning its righteousness, I am deeply, profoundly sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 1,000 years, Dorian said, but there was no heat in his voice. Only exhaustion. Sorry doesn't undo what I became in that darkness. No. But perhaps this does. Victoria pulled out a small crystal vial filled with glowing silver liquid. This is the essence of the seal that binds you to darkness. With it, and with your cooperation, we can break the blood bond tying you to Marina. We can set you both free. Marina's heart stuttered. Free. She could go home, return to her village, live the quiet life she'd always known. No more danger, no more darkness, no more impossible vampire prince who'd somehow worked his way into her heart. She looked at Dorian and found him already looking at her, his silver eyes full of something that looked like heartbreak. You should take it, he said quietly. You never asked for this, Marina. You were just trying to save people. This isn't your burden to bear. And what happens to you if we break the bond? He shrugged, trying to appear casual and failing. I continue. I'm free now. I have answers. I can finally start to understand who I was before the darkness, maybe figure out who I want to be now. I'll be fine. You'll be alone. I've been alone for 1,000 years. What's another few centuries? Marina stood, her chair scraping back. You're an idiot. Dorian blinked. Excuse me. A beautiful, tormented, self-sacrificing idiot. She grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. You think I don't know what you're doing? You're trying to be noble. Trying to give me an out because you think that's what I want. But here's what you're missing, Dorian. I don't want an out. I want you. Marina. 3 weeks. That's all we've had. 3 impossible, terrifying, wonderful weeks. And I've learned more about courage and hope and what it means to really live in that time than I did in 22 years of safety. You make me brave, Dorian. You make me want to be more than just a village girl gathering herbs. You make me want to matter. You already matter, he said roughly. You matter more than you know. Then let me choose. Marina turned to Victoria. Is it hurting either of us? Is there any danger in keeping it? Victoria examined them both, her magical senses clearly working. Finally, she shook her head. No. If anything, it's stabilizing you both. Marina's mortality anchors Dorian to humanity. His power protects her, keeps her safer than she'd be alone. It's unusual, but not harmful. Unless either of you wants it broken. No, Marina said firmly. Marina, think about what you're saying. I have thought about it. For 3 weeks I've thought about nothing else. She grabbed Dorian's hand, pressing it to her chest where her heart beat steady and sure. I love you. I know it's insane. I know it's been almost no time at all. I know you're a vampire and I'm mortal and we have maybe 50 years together if I'm lucky before I'm old and you're still frozen at 23. I know all of it, and I don't care. I love you, Dorian Ashford. And I'm not breaking this bond. Dorian stared at her like she'd struck him. You love me. Desperately. Hopelessly. Completely. I'm a monster. You're my monster. And I'm your mortal. That's what we agreed, remember? Marina smiled through sudden tears. Besides, you can't get rid of me now. Someone has to make sure you don't spend the next century brooding in caves. A laugh broke from Dorian, startled, genuine, full of wonder. You're impossible. I know. You're going to drive me insane. Probably. I love you too. He said it like a confession, like a prayer, like he couldn't quite believe he was allowed to feel it. God help me, Marina. I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anything. You walked into my darkness and brought light with you. You looked at a monster and saw something worth saving. How could I not love you? He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of 1,000 years of loneliness finally ending. Through their bond, Marina felt his love, his fear, his hope, all tangled together in something so profound it took her breath away. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. Well, she said. I suppose that settles that. Though I should warn you, the other families won't be as understanding as we are. The Ashfords and the Thorns will still see you as a threat, Dorian. Let them come. Dorian's arm tightened around Marina. I've spent 1,000 years being what others feared. I'm done with that. From now on, I'm only what she sees in me. And if that's not enough for the others, then they'll answer to both of us, Marina finished. Because we're in this together. No matter what comes next. Victoria laughed. You know what? I think you two might actually survive this. Against all odds, against reason, against everything, you might just make it. We will, Marina said with certainty. Because monsters and mortals don't usually work out. But we're not usual. We're us. Dorian pressed a kiss to her temple, his voice soft and full of wonder. We're us, he agreed. And somehow, that's enough. Marina and Dorian's story started with a broken seal and ended with a promise of forever. But really, it's about so much more than that, isn't it? It's about second chances. About looking past what someone appears to be and seeing who they truly are. About choosing love even when it's complicated, dangerous, and completely illogical. I want to hear from you. What moment in this story hit you the hardest? Was it when Dorian asked Marina to stop him if he became a monster? When she offered her blood to save innocent lives? When he confessed he'd been lonely for 1,000 years? Drop a comment and let me know. I love connecting with you all over these stories. If you're new here, welcome to the family. We tell dramatic romance stories with real emotion, complex characters, and endings that actually satisfy. Hit subscribe and join the thousands of others who come here for their weekly dose of dark romance. We've got vampires, werewolves, forbidden love, enemies to lovers, all of it. And if you've been here before and you're still watching, you're the real MVPs. Thank you for supporting this channel and being part of this community. Your comments, your likes, your shares, they all matter more than you know. One more thing, if you believe in love that transcends darkness, give this video a thumbs up. It tells YouTube to share it with more people who need a good romance story in their lives. Alright, that's all from me today. Until the next story, remember, everyone deserves someone who looks at them the way Marina looks at Dorian, like they're worth saving, worth fighting for, worth everything. Take care, and I'll see you soon.